Families in Action on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. I'm Cary Quashen. I am your host, but I do not host this by myself. I host it with my co-host, Michael Duarte. We call him the Silver Fox around here. And if you watch us on Time Warner or any of that, you'll see why we call him the Silver Fox, right?
Well, a young lady walked in and saw me sitting there, and she said, "Hello, Silver Fox."
Really?
So
they must have been listening to the deal, right? Oh, there you go. That would be JC, right?
JC, that's right. And
she's one of Action's finest.
That's right. I could
she
tell.
Is. I know she really is.
She came in and she told me that. She said, "I'm one of Action's
She
finest."
is a shining star, Mike. She really is. She goes
right.
to the Bowman and all the other schools, and she deals with the kids, and we'd be lost without her. So yay, JC. And she's sitting here in the corner. We'll introduce her a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, we're all kind of crowded in here today. We have a bunch of fantastic guests, Cary.
We do, but before we do that, Families in Action is brought to you by your local hometown station, AM 1220, which we appreciate. We've been on the air now 13 years.
That's a big wow.
A long, long time. And also Action Family Counseling, which is drug and alcohol rehabilitation centers from outpatient to inpatient and everything in between. And the Action Zone, not the Zone. I'm like losing it today. Family Foundation. Why don't you tell us about that?
For the listener that's out there, Cary, that's a parent, I want them to pay a special attention to what I'm about to say. Every Tuesday night from 7 to 9, we have the free parent support group. This is from Action Family Foundation. And you've been doing this for a really long time. It's at Canyon High School.
How about 30 years?
30 years, I would say that would definitely qualify for a long time.
Yeah, it would.
Because I think that's older than most of our guests that are with us today. Or maybe several of them combined. I'm not sure to make 30. Anyway, for parents who are saying, I can't deal with it, I don't know what to do, I'm lost, this is the perfect solution.
Tuesday night, 7 p.m., Canyon High School. This is the perfect solution, and you'll find out why as the show goes on. There's so many different successes, and it's for anybody. I mean, if your kid's got low self-esteem, if they're having school problems, if they're fighting with you, if they're using drugs, whatever the deal is, it's for you. We have a teen group there. JC and JB run it. Johnny Carlo and JC. Johnny Belgard. Johnny Carlo's another friend of mine. Johnny Belgard and JC run the kids group, and they're excellent. We have steering committee, which are kids that you're going to meet in a moment. And then I run the parent group along with some other parent coordinators, and it's pretty cool stuff. So you should definitely show up. If you're saying to yourself, should I? Yeah, you should. And I was coming to a group a few months ago, and this happens a lot, Mike. Mm-hmm. There was a dad there, and we do the new people, right? And I said, "You're new?" He says, "Well, kind of." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, I tried to come here the last 2 or 3 weeks. I was driving here, and I got too nervous to come in." And a lot of people are.
Sure.
I mean, we get that. Nobody wakes up and goes, "Gosh, I want to go to this group and learn how to be a parent." But when you're having crises with your kids, this is the place to go.
And for the parent who says, "But if I'm there and somebody I know sees me there,"
it happens all the time. Guess what? They're there for the same reason.
You got it.
So you got nothing to be ashamed about.
So
the only thing you might have to be ashamed about is if you don't go and things get worse.
No, absolutely. 7 to 9, Tuesday nights, Canyon High School, the place to be. The other thing I wanted to mention, Cary, and this is so cool, the Action Academy, free public sober school for local junior and senior high school students. Wow. And it expanded this year, correct?
Oh, yeah. No, we went, we're going up to like 16 kids from 10. So we're really, really proud of that. We're really excited about that. And, you know, it's tough. And people say all kids use drugs. Well, that's so far from true. But by the time we find the kids, all their friends do. So we really are trying to find ways to help them get teen positive peer support and pressure, and that's what the school does for them. So it's really pretty exciting stuff.
Should I introduce our guest before we get into the action file? Because I have all the names.
So do I, but go ahead.
All right. Hey, with us today, we have Mitchell, Ashley, Joey, Elizabeth, and Ben. Welcome to Families in Action.
These guys are stars, man.
They really
are, because I mean they come in here and they're talking, but they help lots of other kids, and just they're really role models. And we'll talk a little bit about them in a moment, but why don't you do your action file and then we'll go to them.
Well, we have 3 of them today, Cary. Listen to this. Here's why teen STDs are hitting an all-time high. And in case you don't know what an STD is, that's a sexually transmitted disease. The number of people in the U.S. with an STD recently hit an unprecedented high, and this is from 2015. There were increases in all nationally reported STDs for the second year in a row. There were 1.5 million reported cases of chlamydia, the highest number of STD cases ever reported to the government.
Wow.
People between the ages of 15 and 24 accounted for the largest number of infections.
You guys listening to this?
And here's the big question. Why?
You guys are between 15 and what? 24? Just checking.
15 and 24, yeah. For starters, only 22 states and the District of Columbia mandate both sex education and HIV education, and many schools provide an abstinence-only curriculum. Sex education classes often focus largely on preventing unintended pregnancies and less on preventing infections. So, why young people today are not as fearful of STDs as previous generations. Now, they were too young to remember the emergence and the spread of HIV. That's one thing.
Right.
So there's a lack of fear. People ages 15 to 24 accounted for half of all gonorrhea cases reported in the U.S. in 2015. Wow.
So if we're not doing the sex education in schools, we need to do them at home.
Yeah, somewhere.
We need to really educate our children and let them know the dangers of what's going on out there right now, because it's pretty. You can't look at somebody and say nope, yes, nope.
No.
It's not a guessing
Work
game.
that way.
It's kind of one of those kind of things that you just got to really pay attention to. So I want to jump right into the show because we don't have a lot of time and we got a lot of these guys and I want their stories. So what I'm going to do is, you know, I've been doing this for a very, very long time, as you know, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's so exciting when we have like a support group. And I wish JC was in here because she's sitting over there. There's no room. But why don't you just get behind them so we can include you in this? But when you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these guys that are really, they're on steering committee.
Oh, they are.
And to get on steering committee is not easy, Mike. I mean, JC, tell people how they get on steering committee, and then I'm going to let them finish it. What do they got to do?
6 months sobriety requirement and a good example, setting a good example of sobriety and progressing in other areas in their life as well.
So these are leaders.
Exactly.
So meaning that it's not just sobriety. It's taking care of business, going to school, taking care of that, going to meetings, doing all the good stuff that these guys do. Respecting their parents and stuff like that. So usually right now we have a call-in show for gratitude because it's the holidays. But you know what? I'm feeling a little more grateful bringing these guys on. So I really wanted them to talk. And I want you to hand that mic to Joey, and tell us why you came to Action and tell us what's going on. And then when we're done, you can tell us what you're grateful for.
I came to Action in the beginning because of drinking, and I was falling on a wrong path and hanging out with like the wrong crowd, trying to fit in and just be somebody that I'm not. And I had ended up getting into an incident where I ended up coming to Action and meeting Cary, and he totally put everything in perspective for me. And from then on, I decided, you know what, sobriety is something that I want and it's something that I need, and I continue to go on that path today.
Good. And how old are you, Joe?
I'm 17 years old.
And tell us what was your turning point? What really did it for you?
I had a couple cousins that passed away from alcoholism.
So they died from alcohol.
Yes.
Okay.
And a lot of my family from drug addiction and things like that. So I decided that I'm not going to go down this road, and I need to make something better myself.
Good. And it wasn't really that easy for you at first, was it? 'Cause
No.
you had some real hiccups.
Yes.
You want to talk about those?
Back a couple years ago, back in September, I ended up trying to commit suicide, and I went through a few things with that, and but now I'm like.
You went into a real depression. What does it
Yes.
mean when I don't want to put you on the spot, but you were 15
Yes.
and you really thought about ending your life. What does that feel like? Just for the people out there.
It feels horrible. It's not something that like a lot of people think about sometimes, but it's a lot of people go through it. So, yeah.
And I believe this. I believe that most everybody that is suicidal, that wants to die, really doesn't want to die. They just don't want to hurt anymore. That makes sense? They don't want to feel the pain. So you did a lot of work on yourself, so that pain went away, and now you're kind of like a junior counselor over there at Action, and it's really neat to see you shine. It really is. I mean, you from 2 years ago to now, wow. It seems like every time you had a crisis and you ended up at the hospital, I was there. It's kind of like a coincidence. Actually, pretty lucky for you in a way, but we won't talk about that today.
Yeah.
So, who in your life do you? I mean, your mom's been there every week. Isn't that cool?
Yes.
You want to say something to her? If you do, too bad, because I want you to put it on hold. At the end of the show, you're going to be able to do that. But anything else you want us to know about you?
Nothing too much, but I've been sober for 2 years and 3.5 months now.
That's incredible. Isn't that cool? I don't know why you're sitting there. You need to stand up over there and just kind of hang over there, because you work with these guys, so you need to participate in this show, doesn't she?
Yes.
So she's one of our, like I said, one of our shining counselors. So, Joseph, I'm really, really proud of you.
Thank you.
Mike, isn't that cool?
Cary, I always love hearing these stories because while I didn't deal with alcoholism or drugs myself, as you know, my father was an alcoholic.
Yes.
So I've been down that road, and I know how devastating all of that can be, and it's always wonderful to hear a story of success.
It is, and you know, I did an interview on Channel 4 News last week, and the reason why is because, listen to this, the new statistics, and this is horrifying. 1 in every 7 Americans are going to have a substance abuse disorder.
Wow.
1 in every 7 Americans are going to have a substance abuse disorder. Isn't that crazy? By the time this show is over, 3 people will die from just an opiate overdose. That's not including all the other deaths from
5.
drug. 5 in an average. But so it's an epidemic. Everybody knows it now, and I don't know anybody who doesn't know somebody affected by substance abuse. 1 in every 7 Americans. It's crazy. So what I want to do now is I'm just going to bounce. I'm going to go to no yet. I want to stay with these guys. Elizabeth, you're on. We're just going to bounce all over.
Yeah, I want to ask you a question, Elizabeth, before Cary gets started. How does that make you feel, sitting in here looking at that clock and knowing that during the hour that you're in here, 5 people will have died from a drug overdose?
Well, it's extremely sad because there is a solution and a way to live that is happy and sober. And it's sad that people can't get what all of us have gotten so freely handed to us through Action, the parenting group, and through the counselors there.
So what have you got? Explain it. Tell us your story.
Well, drug addiction and alcoholism runs in my family. And so when I started with drug use and drinking and I got caught, it was really just a cry for help, and it was pretty obvious.
Explain that, because that's really huge. I mean, some kids, especially, how old are you?
16.
And I always say to parents this. Kids ask for help in so many different ways. Some of the ways kids ask for help is they punch holes in the walls. They kick things. They don't go to school. They don't come home. They ditch school. You know, they're screaming for help. It's like you said, and people can't figure it out. So when you say I was really crying for help, I want to hear that.
Well, I just wasn't okay with myself and my living situation of divorced parents, and I just didn't even want to talk about it or deal with it. So using drugs, starting as every day, and drinking every day, and getting caught at school, it's not normal behavior. So getting caught, my parents finally knew about it, and I was getting the help I needed through parenting group.
So kind of in some ways you kind of wanted to get caught.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. And you know what else I hear from parents a lot? is what took my parents so long to figure this out? What took my parents so long to do something? You know?
For sure. And I'm really glad that I go to parent-teen group every week, and I chose to start going at first, and now, like, if I'm having a bad week, I, like, don't want to go necessarily, but my mom's like, no, let's go, and I always have an amazing time, and I always get the support that I need through that.
Very cool. So you were walking down the street one day, right? I want you to remember this, okay?
Okay.
And you looked up into the sky, and a bong fell into your hands and said, "Smoke me." Is that how it happened?
No.
Oh, how did it happen? Then let's hear it.
Well, like, I would hear about it at school and stuff like that, and people doing it, and it was like, oh, like, it's just weed, like, let's try it, but it's never just weed.
All right.
So, just weed turned into other drugs and alcohol and everyday use, because as much as people like to think it's not addictive, it very much is.
Say that
So-
again. I've been screaming that for like 30 years. It's like addicting. It's like very emotionally addictive and some physical.
Exactly. And people who try to say, like, oh, I need it for sleep, like, it's not, you need it for sleep. And that's where the addiction comes, because you feel like you need it for something.
Well, you trick yourself to believe it.
Yeah.
And it's just like that contract that I'm going to do about a 30-second piece on the contract. When we're young, none of us say we're going to grow up and be addicted to drugs or have any of those issues. In fact, we have contracts with things we'll never do. I'll never smoke cigarettes. Why? Because they cause cancer. It says it on the box now. You know, and in fact, it does say that on the box. It says the Surgeon General has determined that smoking causes, and then it goes lung cancer and all that tells you that. So it's a horrible way to go, too. I'll never forget, and this is just for our listeners. My mother had cancer, died about 5 years ago, and in stage 4, when we went to the doctor, I'll never forget, I was sitting there with her. She said to the doc, "How did I get this?" And he looked at her dumbfounded, and he says, "Esther, it says it on the box." Oof, how do you deal with that? But we say, I'll never smoke cigarettes, and, you know, we start hanging out with these people. Want a cigarette? No, we're hanging out every day. We get desensitized. You want a cigarette? Oh, well, what the heck? We take a hit. We say, it's only a cigarette. I'll never smoke weed. But, dude, it's only pot. It's natural. It's not a real drug. God put it there. It's legal now. And you say, what the heck? You take a hit. You convince yourself that. You're breaking contracts. You're getting weak. But you also just put yourself in a whole different group of people now that are making other decisions, breaking other contracts. And you also put something in your body that made you feel different and good. So how do you clean that up? It's only pot. I'll never, and you mean I won't drink. You go to a party, you smoke a little weed, you drink a little booze. Well, it's only, I just won't use hard drugs. And you mean it. You smoke a little more weed, you drink a little more booze. Somebody says, try this, and boom. And some of those drugs you only have to use once to get emotionally addicted. And then you got real issues that you got to run. So all drug abuse starts innocently and then it ends up tragically. It can end up tragically. Now, what we know in this country, 1 in every 7 are addicted to drugs, and every hour 5 people lose their lives just accidentally to drugs. So it's really crazy. How much time sober do you got now?
I have 6 months now.
Isn't that cool? JC,
Feel better, huh?
JC, what do you want
Yeah,
to say to
for
her?
sure.
Say it. Say it.
I'm so proud of you all, and I'm so grateful for the joy you bring to my life. I feel like I have a purpose because you give me that. Thank you.
Nicole, Mike?
Oh, wow. You know, just listening to these folks and looking at the difference, and I never saw them when they were using, but I can tell you, being at the behavioral health unit the way I am, I know what it looks like when you're in a bad way, because we get people who are just destroyed, and you look so sharp and bright, and you're sitting there with your entire life ahead of you. You can do great things. It's up to you. You can do great things, and don't ever let anybody kid you. You can do what you want to do.
Well, you can do anything you want to do.
That's
still.
right.
I was at BHU today, which I run in the psych unit, and there's a guy there that was in our group about 4 or 5 years ago, and he's kind of not all the way home anymore. He's just fried his brain, and you know he's going to have a hard time in life.
Yeah.
At best, he's going to have a hard time in life, and he recognizes me, and he said I should have listened, and all I can say to myself is, yeah, you should have. But anyways, it takes what it takes. You guys stay on the road you're on. it's not worth any of it. The other way is just a road to nowhere you want to go. So I'm really proud of you. Isn't she cool?
Very cool.
So by the way, and I wasn't going to do this, but I will. If you want to participate in this show, you may. You can call 661-298-5487, 661-298-5487. And before we're done, we're going to do a little gratitude stuff, and you guys can tell us all the stuff you're grateful for. But I just kind of want to hear the story, so I'm going to bounce now to Ben. Your name and your age, and tell us your story.
I'm Ben. I'm 18 years old. I came to Action because I had an addiction to edibles, really. Like, that was that's what I started
You mean
on.
tacos?
No,
What's
like,
edibles? I know what it is, but some people don't.
Well, edibles are for when you can't smoke it, because I really couldn't smoke it that much because
Right.
my lungs couldn't take it. So when someone gave me an edible, say this is the same thing as smoking it, and when I tried it for the first time, it was what I was looking for into escaping all my emotions that I had, and I pushed it away. And when I took that edible, it just, everything that I was feeling and that I didn't want to feel anymore, that I searched so long to get rid of,
Right.
it all disappeared for that time.
Let me ask you a quick question right here. And
Yeah.
what happened when it wore off?
They flooded.
They were
Flooded
there
back,
again
yeah.
with a
And,
vengeance.
yeah, and that's what made me, makes you want more of it and more. So the emotions that you're trying to hide away or run away from is just that they disappear for a short amount of time, where you can finally not.
Then they come back.
Obsess about them.
They come back intensified, don't they?
Yeah.
So, what got you to Action?
Really, like my school, when one day I had them and I gave them to a friend, and he actually gave it to a girl that couldn't handle it, and
that's what I want to say right now, is the THC that's out there is way different than it ever was before. It's a whole lot more powerful. 10 or 20 years ago, the amount of THC, the drug that gets you high, used to be about 0.3 milligrams if you take a hit. Now it's in the 20s. That's how much time stronger? And edibles up to 80%. So you're going from 0.3 to 80 in the last 10 or 15 or whatever years. It's not the same drug. We get people that are coming in our ER that are completely lost it. They're psychotic because they couldn't handle the THC, the potency of it. We actually get people that comes in our behavioral health unit that are just lost. And we're hoping they come back, and the only thing we're finding in their drug test is THC. So please don't kid yourself out there. I know it's legal, or it's going to be legal, and I know we voted on it, and I know everybody thinks it's this harmless drug. It's not so harmless. That's a fact. I've been doing this for 30 plus years. It is not so harmless. So go on, Ben.
all right. Where was I?
You were talking about at school, the girl couldn't handle it.
Yeah, the girl couldn't handle it, and so actually I owe it to her because she gave my name and the friend's name. I actually owe it to her because that's when everything started. I went to Tide. I did the 3-day course of Tide, and then I went to
That's
Action.
the school's alternative to suspensions deal for substance abuse. Go on.
And then I went to Action, and at the time it wasn't JC that was
Right.
counseling. It was
We had a lot of counselors. I
it
don't
was
remember.
I think it was Craig.
It was Craig. You're right.
And he's one of the people that started on my road to sobriety.
Right.
But like even then, I was still in the same boat. The emotions came back, and then I really, over the years, I didn't make my like home life that well.
Right.
I was the middle child. There was 2 older and then 3 younger, and so really it's hard. Like when I look back on it, it was me trying to seek attention, and Some of the emotions were from either me comparing myself to my older brothers or, taking what my parents said as comparing me to them.
Right.
And so when I looked on it, I think it was the need for attention is what made me really,
Right.
cause fights with my parents just so that they can focus on me, act out in school. And
It's great. I was talking to somebody in our behavioral health unit the other day, and he punched a hole in something, and I had to have a little conversation with him. And the bottom line, I said, "What the heck did you do that for?" And he says, "I really wanted attention."
yeah.
I said, "All you got to do is ask." And he looked at me like, "Oh, sometimes we just need to ask for what we need, but it's hard. We don't know that." You also said something else that I really want to focus on just for a minute, and that is I'm trying to learn how to deal with feelings, and the drugs kind of helped me when I was high, but when I came down, problems were worse. What we have to teach people in our adult rehabs is how to feel, because they started using at 14 or 15, and then all of a sudden they're 30, and they're in rehab, and every time they had a bad day, they used drugs. If they had a good day, they celebrated by having drinks or booze or drugs. If they got angry, they had to get high. Now we put them in a rehab at 25, 30, 40, whatever ages, and they have no drugs, and they have no booze. They now have to learn how to deal with those feelings that you've learned how to deal with at 17 and 18. So you guys are so much ahead of the game if you think about that. Because those are what keep people really helpless and hopeless, is feelings, stress. If you learn how to deal with it now, you're so far ahead of the game. So I appreciate the fact that you figured that out.
Yeah.
So very cool. I'm really proud of you, dude.
Thank you.
No, I really, really am. So, 18 years old. How much time you got?
I have a year and about 5 months.
Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? Mike, what do you
It's
think?
happening. I mean, that's wonderful. And again, look at what he looks like now. And if we would have seen him before, he just wasn't making it. And now you're learning how to control things. You're learning how to deal with things.
Yeah. And now we're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we have others to listen to. This is Families in Action on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.